Okay, we very much want to thank the Witt family for sponsoring this work tonight in memory of Jason Friedberg ZL, a lone soldier from Montreal who fell on March 7th, 1993. Is the Shama Shana and Aliyah. We have David Rezmovitch speaking tonight. Gavi Dickman. Special Shana Bet.
There was once a king, and this king had a son, and this prince, he was a little bit spoiled. And one day, his heart filled with so much pride that he decided he's going to draw his sword, and he's going to go to the king, his father, and just hurt him a little bit. He's going to cut him. Okay, obviously not in the right mindset, but he does this. He pulls his sword, and as he's walking, he's the prince. He has a lot of mentors, and his tutor sees him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And the prince is like, I'm going, I'm taking my sword, I'm gonna show my dad who's boss, I'm gonna cut him. And the tutor's like, okay. The tutor sees he's not changing his mind. So what does he do? The tutor says, let me do it for you. And so he goes, and you can only imagine what the tutor's thinking. Oh my gosh, anyone that goes to hurt the king, he's sentenced to death. For me, a king's loyal servant, off with my head. That's what we're thinking. What else would the king say to someone, his worker, who tries to go and hurt him? This week's Parsha, we speak about the Egel HaZahav. And I just don't understand. Aaron is the one who creates Egel HaZahav. Why would Aaron create it? And just to put this into perspective, on Friday night we say, Moshe v'Aharon b'kohanav. Okay, but my favorite part of Friday night. But if you look in our scroll, you'll see it comments. It says the Iyun Tefillah says we say Moshe v'Aaron. It's speaking that those are the two leaders of the generation, Gedolei Hador. And now Moshe's up here speaking to Hashem, receiving the Torah. So who's the Gadol Hador to speak with the people? Aaron, the Gadol Hador, and he's creating an Egel HaZahav. I don't understand. Let's look at the Pesukim. Shmos Perek Lamed Bet Lev Pasuk Alef. We say, Bnei Yisrael goes to Aaron and says, Aaron, Kumasei lanu Elokim asher yilchu lifanenu ki zeh Moshe ha'ish asher ha'aleinu me'eretz Mitzrayim lo yadanu ma hayelo. Aaron, create for us a god, make us a god, because that fellow Moshe Rabbeinu, the one that took us out of Mitzrayim, we don't know where he is. So this pasuk's a Dvar Torah and a half of itself, but at least we have the context now. Moshe, the nation, the Israelites, they ask Aaron, the Gadol Hador right now, they say, Aaron, we want a God to worship who took us out of Mitzrayim. We want someone to worship. Please make for us a God. And what does Aaron say? Pasuk Bet, Aaron says, okay, go and get me the golden earrings of your wives and your children and bring them to me. It seems that Aaron was ready to make the Egel HaZahav. But what many of you might be thinking, and is that maybe Aaron was just trying to buy some time, you know? And if you're thinking that, you're thinking about the Chizkuni and the Rashi and the Orach Chaim, and many of the commentaries are thinking Aaron is just trying to buy time because we know, looking back at it, and Aaron knows, Aaron has a dot that Moshe's coming down. We just need a little more time. But we didn't know at the time. We were all confused for whatever reason. So we're just trying to buy time. But if you look at the next pasuk, Bnei Yisrael go in pasuk Gimel, they go right up to Aaron and they say, Aaron, here are our golden earrings. Go build us Egel HaZahav. So what does Aaron do? Surely he doesn't build him a false god. No, pasuk Daled. Aaron literally builds the Egel HaZahav. He builds the Egel HaZahav. So what's happening? Why would Aaron, the Gadol Hador, we just said he's the holiest person right now, he's the Gadol Hador, why would he build a false god? Let's look at the Midrash Rabbah. I love the Midrash Rabbah. The Midrash Rabbah gives three explanations. Explanation one, Aaron was afraid, right? So the nation went first to this prophet, this Navi named Hor, and said, Hor, And when Hor didn't align himself with their beliefs of this Egel Zav, they killed him. Okay. Good first explanation. Aaron was afraid for his life, so he followed what they said. That doesn't fit with me. I'm sorry. I can't understand that the Gadol Hador, such a holy person, would be afraid of people. Like, you know what's right. We have all these stories of Gadol Hador who happily, unfortunately, died for the mitzvahs and for the Torah. So I don't understand how Aaron was afraid. The second explanation, as we said, Aaron was trying to buy time. For whatever reason, he tried to buy time. He kept trying to buy time. It all went so quickly. And he had to build a Egel Azav. Okay, I can't understand it. But the third explanation of the Midrash Rabbah, the third explanation is beautiful, in my opinion. They're all beautiful, but the third explanation, Rabbi Abba Bar Yoden says in the name of Abba, a mashal. It's the mashal of the king, the tutor, and the prince. So let's finish that story. The tutor's going to the king, and he says to and he's about to draw a sword and cut the king, and the king sees right through him, and he says, he doesn't say off with your head, he says, and I'll read it, I'll quote it. I know what your intention was, that it'd be better that you get the Avera instead of my son, that you get the punishment, that you get the sin. Don't you see? B'nai Israel were about to get the Torah. This is the craziest moment of the world. Hashem was about to give us the Torah. And Aharon was such a good leader. He cared so much about everyone. And he saw this. And he saw there's no stopping B'nai Israel from building an idol. So what can I possibly do? I'm not afraid. I'm not trying to buy time. I see there's nothing I can do. So it'd be better that I get the punishment and I take lead. And Aaron thinks it said to himself, it's better that I get the Avera for the Egel Zahav and B'nai Israel could get the Torah with a clean slate. It's better that I build it and I take lead. And the king says to the tutor, I see your intention. And as you live, he says three things. He says, you shall not leave my palace. And that which remains from my table you shall eat, the best food. And you will receive 24 gifts. So too with Aaron. This coincides perfectly, this mashal of course, but so too with Aaron. You shall not leave my palace. The king says to the tutor, Hashem tells Aaron, read in Vayikra, Perek Chaf Alef, Pasuk Yud Bet. Aaron, you shall not go out of the sanctuary. You shall not leave Hashem's palace. And that which remains on the table you shall eat it is compared to the Korban Mincha and how Aaron and his sons and everyone, Aaron, they're the ones who get to eat Hashem's leftovers, Hashem's. They get to eat from the Korban Mincha. Vayikra, Perek Bet, Pasuk Gimel. And the 24 gifts of the king are paralleled to there are 24 gifts of assignments that the Kohanim get to do. And Hashem says, Aaron, I see right through you. I see you weren't building a false god. You just cared so much. And Hashem saw the kavanah that Aaron had. And Hashem said, this is why you're going to be Kohen Gadol. So I was sitting here with Jake Shear once, and we were learning the Pele Yoetz, and we learned, and I believe the context was that if you're in a base Knesset and someone talks to you during davening, are you allowed to respond? Maybe you're a little bit uncomfortable, maybe someone you know will ruin a relationship, maybe it'll embarrass him. At the end of the day, the answer was, you don't respond. I believe this was the context, that was definitely the answer. You don't respond to someone in the base Knesset. Why? Because you do what the Torah says, and sometimes it does not matter if you're uncomfortable. If you have to make a decision, and there's a way to, the Torah says to do something, if it's a mitzvah, you do it. It doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable. You can always find loopholes. You can always find excuses. The more learned you are in Torah, the more excuses and the more ways you know, and the more loopholes you know how to get around doing a mitzvah to make it the way you want to do it. Maybe it's getting out of bed for davening or going to shir. There are so many excuses, Torah or not. 2 minutes to shir, I'm not going to make it. I don't want to walk in on the Rebbe. It's rude. There's so many excuses you could give, valid ones. But it could be your parents. Your parents tell you not to do something. And you decide they'll never know. It's better anyway. The best way to live life, Rabbi Nachman says, the best way to live life is the simple way. And how do you do that? Just follow the Torah. Don't try to find excuses. Just follow the mitzvos. That's how to live a simple life. Just follow the mitzvos. And I think that a question the only question, but at least a question that should be in your mind with every decision you make in life. Whether it's decisions we mentioned or any decision. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's very hard. But you should be asking yourself the question that Aaron asked himself. Aaron didn't have the Torah for another few hours, okay. But he asked himself, what would the Torah want me to do? What would Hashem want me to do? When you make a decision in life, that decision should be accompanied with the single question, what would Hashem want me to do? Shabbat.
All right, so I hope everyone had an amazing and meaningful Purim. Being that it was this week, I wanted to relate my speech to the Parsha, while also touching on a little aspect or negative aspect of Purim. This week's Parsha, Parsha Tisa, is a loaded Parsha filled with such topics as the census, descriptions of items in the Mishkan, as well as the giving of the two sets of luchot to the Jewish people. What I wanted to focus on is why there are two sets of luchot in the first place. Shouldn't there have only been one? I will summarize the answer into two words. Sitra Achra, the animal soul. When Moshe ascended up to heaven for 40 days to master the Torah, the Jews, after peer pressure, as well as out of irresponsibility, decided the best course of action was to create an idol and worship it. It's really insane to believe that after God literally revealed himself to the Jews, cured all of their diseases, and according to commentary, lifted a mountain over their heads, the Jews would still believe some inanimate statue would be the best answer. But I guess when you're stressed, you never think clearly. When Moshe sees this, he becomes enraged and throws down the tablets and they shatter. What really caused the Jews to sin? Was it disbelief or was it irresponsibility? The Tanya says that for someone to do a positive commandment and connect to God or to stray away from God, they will do so by thought, speech, and action. The Jews had really three chances to avoid transgressing a sin. Yet, they thought about creating an idol, pressured the people into erecting one, and then actually began worshiping it. Because of that, the Jews disconnected from their divine soul completely, and instead let their sitra achra, or animal soul, take over. This year, I hope we can do our best to ensure we can connect to God through thought, speech, and action, and even though it is important to associate with your animal soul in many cases, to find the perfect balance between the two and do our best to become the best people we can be. Good Shabbos.